It's a hard knock life for us. Get excited. Welcome back to another episode of The Maturity Project. I'm the host and your host, Chad Everett Broshears, or Sir Chad Everett Broshears to some. If you know, you know. Today's conversation it's about the path to hell, paved with good intentions. It's part of my outgoing statement, or the end of each video, lately anyway. I've been talking about the path to hell. It's paved with good intentions. We got a lot of people that are really, they come from a good place. They get inspired, excuse me, by the effort, or by something that increases their desire to put effort out there. So, we have people like politicians. A lot of people that get into politics, as an example, for outlining, they get into it because they realize that there's some change that they really would like to see made in the world, in their community, who they're going to represent. And they talk about that, and it gets people to want to support them. That's how politicians do what they do in order to get elected. Now, first-time politicians typically start off with the really good intentions. They start someplace, their message is solid, or the message is enrolling enough, as I've done another video on enrollment, but it's enrolling enough. It gets people interested. It gets people to go, okay, well, this person actually understands my life enough that if I get them elected, they can do something to make my life a little better, or a lot better. So it starts off with really good intentions for a great deal of them. They come from true, good-hearted places. Now, I don't want to go too far into what happens in politics and why people sour or turn to self-interests and things like that. Because some people do start off, there's it's not 100% one or another, right? We're all based on there's an interesting spectrum of different variables that make us who we are. We start off with something, and let's say we're 70% motivated to do the right thing, and then we've got sure there's going to be other percentages other than just this or that, because the way that it works for us is human beings, we're very complex creatures. So it wouldn't be 30%, but we'll keep simple math on those, but I'll add in other variables to help illustrate it. So 30% would be, for the fame of it, for the fact that the achievement that they have done it, right? And then the validation of that achievement could be more money, could be the influence to be able to speak and be heard, and then things to happen out of what you say, things like that are self-validating. It could be, a good deal of that. We'll just say for right now, that's the other 30%. So 70% is to do the right thing, and 30% is for validation, whatever that category of validation is defined by. Because a lot of things that we do to define ourselves, that create validation for ourselves, that aren't always obvious. And that'll come into play later in the conversation. So we have people that will start off in some places. Now, once they get there, and they start understanding how the machine works, how the business of being a politician works, then it's, okay, well, if I really want to do good, I need to play along with these people. Otherwise, I'm going to be made to look bad, inept, and ineffective, so they're going to want to take me out. So they start towing the line of what they're told to do, unless they're the outliers or the outliners. And those are the people right now that you hear about them in the news all the time. They're attacked, things like that. They're being made look bad. So again, it's not, look, I'm not saying that I have the definitive depth and the full understanding of it. I understand enough to be able to, okay, there's an issue here. And it's human nature is the thing that's being exploited. So, but this is not a video for politics as much as it is about human behavior, and about our behavior and how to use maturity to overcome it. So you're less susceptible for nonsense or for being misled or sent down the path to hell when you put in the effort to mature. Now, mind you, again, you will have times to burn, right? You'll have times that you're going to need to suffer in order to really understand what the lesson is intending to teach you and what your attachment is to the outcome, the stress, the frustration, things like that about, why it isn't working the way you thought it should, and then what do you need to do about overcoming that so you can develop yourself in a way that you can be better at it, but you got to deal with the emotional attachment to what you thought was the right way to do it as being challenged, and then looking for the details about why it's failing. There's a lot of things, but maturity gives you that access, and that's where you're forging your own diamond. Though, and I'm a huge advocate for that. Obviously, that's what my program is all about, is to help people develop through all kinds of things and give insight so they can continue to develop themselves and understand that hardships are expected. You're becoming a diamond. You're becoming something forged out of hardship, which is exactly what a diamond is. It's forged out of hardship. It's exactly what it takes to make one. It's forged out of hardship. It's why man-made and synthetic diamonds don't have the same value to people when they find out it was made in a lab or made by man and not by nature. A lot of reasons why there's a little value or less value in something whenever it's made by us and mass reproduced. But anyway, back to it is you get into it, you realize there's a business system that's to it. You start, you see that, there's certain things like, a lot of politicians, they get elected, especially like when they get into Congress, they need to be, in order to do what they can to secure a second term, which is what the majority want. They don't want to just get in and do it and get out. Like the origin of politics was get in. It was a stress on your livelihood to go and to represent the people. It was not a benefit on your livelihood aside from the actions that you had taken to improve yours and your constituents' lives. And you had to leave your business to go do politics, and then you went back to your business. So you had a lot of hands in the dirt type of politicians back then. People that really knew what was going on in their community, not attorneys. And we have a lot of attorneys or legally educated people that are in politics now, and they don't really get into the dirt. They lose connection with their constituents. But a lot of them start off with good intentions, and then something changes. A lot of times it's just knowing what's on the other side of the veil of ignorance. So the same thing, you set out for something in your life and you want to, get to enjoying certain things, but to be contribution to other people, you put in the effort. You start doing a lot to make those changes for people, not realizing that other people's vantage points can simply be that what your actions are is taking away from them. And normally we don't notice this until it's somebody who's close to us makes us aware of it. Most people aren't going to go and tell you exactly what you're doing to them when they don't know you, unless you're in a position of authority, like a politician or some sort of celebrity. Then they'll tell you how they feel, but then a lot of times those things are just dismissed because they're like, you don't know me. You don't know what I'm going through. You don't know me. And it's true. But at the same time, the higher that level of public awareness that creates the celebrity profile or a persona, or the politician, their authority is supposed to represent those people to some degree, right? If you're a politician, it's in direct degree. That is in whole what you're elected for, is to represent the people that have elected you. But again, back to individuals and things that you don't need to be a politician for is, for you, what was some of your good intentions, that you set out to make something better and then later found out that, or even found out immediately, which is not as common, but still you could find out immediately, that what you're doing is causing harm to somebody else. Now, I'm not saying don't do it. It's the awareness piece. You need to be aware of it. Well, you don't need to be. If you want to develop, it's better that you're aware of it. If you want to mature yourself, it is better to be aware of it. So with it, everyone has their own attachments, and you don't know what all of those attachments are. Some people have the attachment because you just simply calm them by being consistent with who you are. I've heard this for myself as an attribute because I've been called very mature or wise or whatever. I'm not taking those titles for myself. I've been called that. And to have people around me that don't have that level of confidence in themselves or the situation that they're dealing with. They find that somebody who does seem to have the confidence calms them. Just like in wartime, whenever somebody looks to, their superior officer, and the superior officer, even under the circumstances, seems to be calculated, cool, calm, and ready to respond. And it builds their morale under that stress. Same thing in the work world, same thing in your personal relationships. The storm is coming, and the storm is always coming in our life. It's just sometimes it's past, but there's another somewhere on the horizon. And that storm is just what the stresses are. A lot of it is self-manifested because of the attachment you have for the way life is supposed to go. So if you say, I'm going to make everybody's relationships better. Okay, well, let's look at that. This is from my world, right? I'm going to make everybody's relationships better as a declaration, right? Now, I'm not saying that as some sort of cocky thing or whatever, but the younger and more immature version of myself would say, I want to make everyone's relationships better. Well, on the surface of it, you can start outlining and start putting down on paper what better is. You can say, at times peace, calm, unifying, the ability to work through things together, doing things that really seem to enrich the experience of being together, therefore enriching the experience of being alive. And you have all these things, right, that you can say, okay, these are the desirable attributes of relationships. So we can say, you know what, Hallmark is the ideal, place to shoot for when it comes to relationships. Romantic movies and romantic comedies give you the idea of what a healthy relationship is. You keep building up what this concept of a healthy relationship is, and you have the archetype of what that is. So, we can say, hey, you know what? There is a percentage of people in this world that this is what is considered to be the most ideal type of relationship. You have these things that happen and that, right? But here's the thing, that most people, because they're taught that taking on challenges is taking on conflict, and that conflict needs to be avoided, because if you're not happy, something's wrong. Conflict, it will not, and often does not, make a person feel happy. It makes them feel stressed and challenged, and positive vibes only. Before you know it, now you're stuck in that optimistic worldview where if it's not positive, it's definitely negative, and you need to get away from it, because now we have, a title to associate with it, which is now toxic. This is a toxic situation. This is a toxic person. This is that. And the reality is that the people that are falling into those beliefs typically become the toxic person, if you really wanted to go by the definition and what it actually creates in another person's life. It's a pretty narcissistic place to be, but it's under the veil of the right thing. It's under the veil of the good thing. It's under the veil of the, what people should be, or the way they should be, or what they should say, and how they should, or whatever, right? It's shoulding on people. By the way, shoulding on people is the way I prefer it, because it's so close to shitting on people. And that is often really what you're doing, is when you should on somebody, you're defecating on them. So, but anyway, because it's not your lesson when you should somebody. You've already had your lesson, and some of that's hypothetical in your own play in your mind, that's the way it's supposed to be, because it's not an actual practice. It's all what you thought up after an event happened, and you feel like you've learned your lessons, but you don't have the courage to implement it in your own. You may be avoiding those situations again, and that's a contingency plan in case you fall into one of those situations that you built that lesson out of. So, all right, so don't shoot on people is really the short end of it. And if you do shoot on them, bring some Febreze and maybe some paper towels, some toilet paper. You got to clean up your mess. So anyway, all right, let's get to it here. So let's get to it. Back to it. We've not diverged so far. So you have that idea of making the world just improve everybody's relationships. Well, how do you go about that? Some people require chaos in order to feel like they're in the relationship they want to be in. So there's reasons behind this. Every day you deal with a challenge and you come up with a solution, you're creating a skill set for whatever that challenge is. The more often you have to exercise that skill set, the stronger it gets, and the more likely you are to associate that with who you are as a person. It's no longer just a skill set, now it becomes a characteristic. Some people are really good about throwing a saddle on a tornado, and that's where they like to be, right? Like, think about it. Let's just look at bull riding, if you want to use the analogy of a tornado with a saddle. Well, hell, it's riding a bull or a wild horse, right? An unbroken horse. Why the hell would somebody jump on an animal that has the ability to kill you within a split second because of its sheer size and its aggression and its desire to defend itself against an enemy that's now strapped to its back because it doesn't know you from anything other than it was taken from a different world and you just made it into this thing, right? This thing to ride. Well, yeah, that's like throwing a fucking saddle on a tornado. It is a wild ride. Some people have become skill-setted into that. They're conditioned by their environment and their authorities early on, by the tools they got and the situations they had and the attachments they had leading up to that. Some people are actually developed. They have a genetic predisposition for chaos. I don't consider them to be bad people. People that have the predisposition for chaos create the stimulus necessary for your pulse to actually happen in life. For you to go, wow, I lived because I had enough challenges to understand that I was alive, versus the numbing effect of having everything go the way that you wanted to. If you want examples of what happens whenever you get the numbing effect because everything goes the way you want it to, think about how many times you've heard about incredibly wealthy families and their children are just absolute chaos. They're arrested all the time. They're constantly getting some sort of privilege exercise to get them out of trouble. Things like that society seems to really hate because you have this successful family that is doing something that you don't have that privilege for, and you would be in a greater deal of trouble if you were to be in that same situation. But they, because of their position or power, it's influence, really power influence, that they're able to get away with it. Well, there's a great example of exactly why what has us be so challenged about it. Like, people get away with certain things. Well, they have everything good in their life, if you will. Like, if you could qualify, sit back and be like, don't have to worry about your bills. You can go to whatever college that you want to. You can date whoever it is that you want to. You are part of a succession plan for your family business, or you have access to whatever kind of work you want to do, or whatever, right? You can just come up with all these things that are like, the beautiful thing in life. Well, the problem that you really run into is that if you really pay attention to what's going on with those people, they're not satisfied in life, and it doesn't matter how much they're given. They haven't had enough suffrage. They haven't had enough of making their own life. They haven't taken on enough challenges to find the values that associate with the moral compass that a lot of us that have gone through a significant degree of challenges seem to have. And that moral compass is helping us understand how to work with other people in a way that we don't damage other relationships too significantly, so that they stay workable, so you have access to resources and that you yourself can be a resource for another. That's another huge benefit about being by taking on challenges, your skill sets that you're developing. So for the people in relationships that feel better when they're riding the tornado, they have skills necessary to manage chaos. And if those skills are not exercised, sure, initially it may feel good because, hey, riding a tornado, it's going to take a lot of energy out of you. It's uncomfortable, but yet thrilling. There's an excitement to it. So with these people in relationships, they get into them, they convince themselves, they convince everybody else, this is where I want to be, I'm happy, I love this is great. For once I can breathe, I can relax, I can be myself, I can do whatever, right? Well, eventually they find, it's not even, in my opinion, for the people that I talk to that are like this and what I've studied about it and my own personal experiences is, it's not conscious to go, I need to fuck things up. It's not conscious. It's subconscious, because it's the skills that you've made dormant causes you to become frustrated, uneasy, as things are going so well, but all of a sudden there's a wrench thrown in it. There's no reason, nobody can understand why. And this is why, because those skills get restless. That's why I say be mindful about what you're feeding your mind by the thoughts that you have and what you entertain and what you're allowing yourself to continuously develop by thinking over and over and over again about it, or staying on that track of consciousness, because skills come with consistency of thinking, because you got to learn how to navigate through that thinking process or that thought process. So whenever you take on something like I made that declaration, right? If by me putting in the effort to create the greater good in relationships when I'm interacting with people, and that be my desire to guide and to give insights on, well, for the people that actually like to ride the tornado, I'm making a greater hell for them, because that peace turns into hell for them, and their partner will think everything is great until that chaos skill comes out into play, and then the partner goes, my God, what did Chad get us into? Because I lowered my guard, I gave this much of myself to this person, and now this person has hurt me so bad I'll never recover. Because they've become so vulnerable to the other person, because the other person's actions, and then anybody they saw as an authority to help them, say, hey, this is what healthy relationships supposed to be like, or this is the kind of relationship I'm willing to invest in. All of the stuff that has given them that sense of confidence, which, by the way, movies, romance movies, stuff like that are also functioning like that. It's an authority to some degree, where people are like, hey, I'd love to be able to have this kind of a relationship. It's because that stuff is made to get people to buy the movie. It's made to go watch it. It's made to get attention. And what's going to get your attention? Seeing the frustration because you didn't get the same groceries that you both thought you were going to get, and that it turned into this mild disagreement. Nobody's going to want to watch that. They're going to want to see something of greater depth and greater value. They want to see the bigger fights if it's going to be something like that. They want to see that, that they've overcome something, and then they've fallen deeper in love, or they've met the person that just seems to synchronize with them. They want that. That's what they're after. And then you build your reality off of entertainment. It's not a problem to have ideas and goals, but it's a problem whenever you make that seem to be the actual ultimate goal. That's how relationships are supposed to be, especially if it's built out of Hollywood or Hollywood, whatever. They've turned to absolute garbage. But nearly everything coming out of Hollywood now is trash, because it has anyway. It's superficial nonsense and agenda-driven nonsense, garbage. But anyway, so you get back to that position where it's, I want to have these kind of relationships. So my position now is a more mature one when it comes to relationships. And that is, I gained access to this in part, or I gained access into this other thing that I'm about to tell you, because of relationship assessments and analyzing relationships like that. But so for those relationships, I realized you can't give people direction. Your insights can miss if you don't understand what their goals are. And in order to understand what their goals are, you have to have things defined. If you're not defining things, don't touch it. You don't know what they're wanting. You don't know what they're going to do. Don't touch it. Leave it alone. You've got to be careful with that stuff, because, in my opinion, because that's where the path to hell is showing up. It's one of them. And if you're going to give people advice on how exactly to run their own relationships, you need to know where they're at versus giving advice from yours, because your relationship is yours. Right? Like who you're attracted to, the traits you're attracted to, what characteristics really draw you in, like all that stuff. Hey, that's you. Your ability to deal with arguments and disagreements, your own personal constitution, your rationale, your ability to pace yourself in the conversation and be patient enough to hear your partner. All of that stuff is unique to you. So when you give advice to other people, it is better they know you're coming from you versus this unspoken arbiter of truth. Because that's sometimes what people, and I say actually oftentimes, people don't look at it like this is your perspective. They look at it as if you're tapped into something you're more developed in than they are, which means if you're tapped into something more developed than they are, there's a pretty good chance that there is a higher level of authority in that, some sort of arbiter of truth, if you will, like the perfect relationship is something that's channeling to them or some nonsense like that. Reality is that you are a combination of multiple things, a significant amount of things that make you who you are. And if you're not aware of all those things that make you who you are, your advice can cause more problems for others unless you understand how to articulate where you're coming from is specific to you and how that works. Like I do with this channel, is my intention is to not tell you how to live your life, but to give opportunities to look at things differently so that you can change your vantage point and develop in a more rounded way. So changing reality for people in relationships is a better place than to make the world better by making relationships better as a superficial perspective, that there's one way to make relationships better, because it's not ever going to work. The same problem with communism and socialism is that we don't want to be there as a people. We really don't. We don't want uniformity to the point everybody has the same things. It bores us. It aggravates us. It causes us a lot of problems. But you get there because you use problems to create that being the solution. And it's taking advantage of ignorance because it's not giving people access to develop in themselves. It's lowering the bar, really. And that's easy because effort requires energy and resources. And what's easy by lowering the bar and making everybody believe they're going to have what they want is the greater challenge. That's a bigger road to hell. It's super highway to hell, in my opinion. But anyway, not to make it a political thing. It's just, again, that's part of the attribute and the issues that I have with communism and socialism is it won't work because of very simplistic key tenets. But back to the relationship thing is the same thing. Nobody wants the same damn relationship. Some people want calm and relaxation. Some people want adventure and mystique, mystery. Well, if you want certainty, mystery is not what you want. If you want calm, then adventure is not what you want. You can't create that perfect reality for people without making it that they understand where they're at. And where you are today does not mean it's where you want to be tomorrow. You may have a false idea about what success looks like, in which we all do. What it looks like because we've watched movies that make you believe the success. We read books that make you believe it. We've talked to people or interacted with people that have achieved what we would consider success, but they didn't necessarily articulate it in a way that really gave the truth. Or they gave the truth, but your ability to comprehend what they're saying because of the lack of life experiences have stopped you from being able to have that understanding. The path to hell is paved with good intentions because ignorance is always going to be present. It's your ability to speak into ignorance will change that path. It's good intentions that are starting it. It's the process of being successful with good intentions as moral decisions come up that you haven't had enough life experience to teach you that when you make a decision that goes against other people's interests, which would be a bad person scenario, if you will, because most people would agree that that's against other people's interests, therefore it makes you a bad person. That's lowest common denominator in those situations. But you're going to be with this continuation of you don't understand. Whatever you typically use to rationalize the decisions that you've made that may not be in everyone's interest, or at least not in everyone's interest right now, I'll suspend my moral position long enough to become wealthy, and then I'll get back to it. Well, that's the same as sitting at a car lot, and signing on the dotted line to buy a vehicle, and you convince yourself you're going to pay it off early. No one really ever does that. There are very few people that actually intentionally pay the vehicle off within half the time of the loan. It's just not common, but it is very common to sit and tell yourself you will. Same thing with the path to hell. It's like you have all the good intentions for it, but then you take on the debt. A lot of us don't want to acknowledge the debt, or when you make those moral, concessions that suspend your moral position. When you take that, one of the other challenges that you give yourself is that you're lessening the real impact because of your low exposure to it over time. In the beginning, it's a little challenging, and then it's like you get used to it. And before you know it, the framework that's necessary to suspend your moral position, well, that framework turns into the next moral decision that you're going to suspend. And before you know it, you strengthened that rationale to the point that now you're making things that look villainous. Instead of just bad or bad person, you're now culminating multiple different attributes of bad person to turn into what people would categorize as villain. Because a villain is riddled with bad and, and poor decisions against other people or bad decisions against others that puts them at a disadvantage. That's the villain position. You build yourself up to it. So if you want to break yourself from the path to hell, mature yourself. There's something amazing when you get there and you have people with you that got there with you, and they didn't get there because you needed them so that you could step on them. But you got there because you helped them grow as they helped you grow, and you have a true team, like the show Entourage. Why is it that Entourage is such a popular show? It wasn't just the entertainment side of it. People could put themselves in the reality of what it would be to be famous and to bring their friends with them. No, because if you don't have people with you as you get to those higher levels, the people that know how to extract things from you and convince you that they're an ally, they become more abundant than they do before you have everything. Lottery winners get this experience all the time. So, same thing with celebrities. You get new friends. And those new friends show up because those new friends are built off of you have something they want. Versus you have the characteristics that they find supportive for themselves in life, the personality and the other attributes that actually make us human beings. Those people are the ones that you usually call friends because they want to be around you because of those reasons and they want to contribute back to you. The people that you have to be mindful of are the ones that want to take it from you, that want what you have, and their intentions aren't to give you any of their own resources to be supportive and keep things in balance. Their intention is to have what you have and to convince you that they're an ally of yours, a friend, a close friend, a partner. Their job in their world, the way that they've learned this parasitic behavior is that they'll just get what they can from you. And then you find out you've been betrayed. I've created 2 Judases, and I'll probably do a video just specifically of Judas. The biblical character Judas is the great betrayer of Jesus, but I've created 2 in my lifetime. So I'll go over that at another time. But as this goes, just be mindful. You can create a highway to really anything, but you have to mature yourself to accomplish that. So join me in that process. Again, this is Chad Everett Broshears, or Sir Chad Everett Broshears to some. If you know, you know. This is the Maturity Project. We're going to discuss a lot of interesting things, but for right now, what we need to do is just focus on what's right here at the moment. Join in with me. Subscribe to the channel so you can catch these videos whenever they go up. Like the channel and like the videos. That'll help with the algorithm so we can get more people to be aware of it. And use this video. Share it with people that you want to break the ice with. Start a conversation that's meaningful. Take this someplace. That's what I suggest that we do to help, start conversations that are meaningful enough. Use this video to break the ice. Okay. As I always say, we got a world to address. We got a world that needs us, but we got to work on ourselves first, because the path to hell is paved with good intentions. And right now our society is making a super highway there. So let's change that. All right, let's get to it. All right, till next time. We'll see you.